Hi, I'm Jill from KiteCo, and it's really cool to be back with another pattern. This one is a little wallet, technically not a bag, but hey, it has so many options and is so much fun, very quick, beginner friendly, full SVGs and so many options. I am sure you will enjoy making it, and I'm sure they will sell really easily if that's what you're looking for. So we have the large with the 5 credit card slots. We have the small with 2 credit card slots and ID. Then we've got both sizes with no credit card slot. Now there's so many options. Inside you can have HTV or fabric. The instructions for that are there. There's also a different tab with a D-ring as part of the tab, so it's really nice and strong. That can also have a swivel hook on it. So really, I guess the only way this pattern limits you is with what you're going to make it out of. Now, because it is a raw edge, it only can be made with vinyl, leather or cork, something that is what they term self-healing. And there's only 2 edges to edge coat if you want that more professional look. So the pattern is going to be in our Etsy shop from the 16th of June. Now, I'm sure you're going to really enjoy this pattern. Take a look, grab yours. It will be on sale for the first few days, so you don't want to miss out. So this is everything we need to make the basic wallet with the fabric lining. This is the small, the large is the same with bigger or more credit card slots. This is bigger than a 12-inch mat, but there is instructions on how to cut it on a 12-inch mat, and I will do a video on that, but it's very doable by hand as well. So because we are doing lining fabric, we've got our lining, our ID window lining, our ID clear vinyl for the windows, our zipper and our zipper pull. I am doing the E1 and 2 tab because I want to put a D-ring on that. I'm using a size 16 cam snap, and I do that because this goes here and we don't want to put too much pressure on this bar. So I even put a little bit of Decavil light there. Now I have seen this where the tab has been cut square and a square piece of Velcro put there, which looks kind of cool too. Now for my credit card slots, I'm using what they call weed matting in New Zealand. Very thin. There is a thinner version, but I wouldn't use that because it does rip. I don't know what they call it overseas, maybe landscaping fabric or something. That's brilliant for the backing of the credit cards. And a credit card to get your sizing correct, and a couple of sizes of double-sided tape. You will also need some glue of some description to glue down the edges and to glue the surface on. That's everything we need. So we're going to start by drawing our zipper box on the wrong side of our lining. So if we line up the top, and I just draw a little line to identify my corners. Also drawn a line down the middle with little V's coming into the corners. So I hope you can see those. So we're going to take that and put it to the top, line up the tops. This is the top and that's the top, and it's easy marked on the pattern, which they are. We're going to line that up. And we're going to sew around the outside of our box only. Keeping everything nice and flat. Okay, so we've sewn around our box. Now what we want to do is get some very sharp scissors, make a snip in the middle, and cut to where our V's, see that V starts there, and then snip from the V into the corner, but do not snip the fabric. Oh, sorry, the stitching. Get it nice and close without snipping it. Right, so now we want to pick up all of this and push it through to the back. Like that. put a little bit of pressure on there. Give it a really good crease. Like that. So on the back. Now some people like to have a little bit poking through. In fact, with this lining, actually I might let a bit come through because I quite like that around the edge so it frames the zipper. But what we're going to do before we go any further is put our bag tag on. Now we want to put our bag tag between the zip and the ID pocket. So now we're going to add our bag tag. Make sure your lining is up at the top. We want to bring it down no more than 1.5 inches or 4 centimeters from the top to the bottom of your bag, and you want it centered across the bag. So that's where I've put my little marks. And I shall just cut those. Because you do not want to catch your fabric in behind. That's not a good thing. Wash it on the back. Now I put a piece of wide double-sided tape on the back here just to protect the prongs from going through any of my fabric, like that. Make sure that's straight. Right, so what we want to do now, glue this fabric down. Because of our tag later on, we want to leave a gap in this piece here. So we do not want to glue in that section. So between the zip and there, we don't want to glue. Now I've got some glue film, which I'm going to use to glue mine. You can use a spray glue, you can use whatever glue you want to use. The good thing about this stuff is you can just put it where you want it. So that's all glued down with our gap where we need it there later on. So now we're going to work on our zipper. So I bought this little fandangle. So it's a great little thing. It's a towel rack, little towel holder. I put that in there just to hold it out the way. Open my zipper tape. Feed them in from the sides so it's nice and even. You can feel them go down together. Whoops, don't pull it back out again when you're pulling it out though. And slide that out. Easy as. Right, so there's our zipper tab. Now we want to have some 3mm 1/8 of an inch. I use this one because we don't want to have too much in under our machine. What we're wanting to do is have that opening to the right, or I do. You can have it opening any which way, but if you want it opening to the right, that's the way it should be facing. So you want to put one piece of tape on at a time and center it in the box. You will trim these edges later. Make sure that's up out of your way. Alright, so what we want to do now is sew around the edge of that zipper box only with a 3mm seam allowance. So that's our zipper box all complete. Now what we want to do is trim some of this so that it's a little bit away from each edge, but not too close to here. So that's our zipper all done, sealed and in place. Now we want to start working on our ID window. So take your piece of clear vinyl and put double-sided tape right on the very edge of it, around 3 sides only. So 1 short and 2 long sides. My machine doesn't mind sewing on double-sided tape, but if yours does, make sure it's well in the edges and not into the middle at all. So that's right on the very edges of that. Turn this over, and we're wanting to stick this centered on there. See, I have brought that up too far now, and we want it up as far as we can here, because we want to put our snap in the middle here to give it a bit more strength. So center it over the credit card slot that way. So it will be about 3 mil down, and mine's a little bit too short because I cut off the end of my piece I had. Secure that nicely in place. Now what we're wanting to do is sew around this edge only, around the box on the outside, not around the box to here. We just want to sew around this box here, fairly close to the edge. So I would do it within 3 millimeters, 1/4 inch, no more. Now it's up to you whether you backstitch or whether you leave long tails and pull them through. So that's all stitched around the edge and all stitched around there. So what I'm going to do now before I carry on is put a little bit of Decovil light just in behind the clear plastic. So between the clear plastic and the credit card, make sure it doesn't come as far as that. So what we're going to do now is flip it over and do a row of stitching on the inside or underneath our ID slot. Now I like to keep mine within 3 millimeters of that line, so maybe 1 or 2 millimeters, so very, very close. Right. So there's your row of stitching, and it's caught. So what we're wanting to do now is put the male side of a cam snap or a very fine strap or even a strip of Velcro in the middle here. So closer to this edge than this edge, because this is going to hold the strap for your credit cards. So I'm just going to use my L to push it through. You can use a hole punch or whatever you wish. That's nice and flat. So I'm putting the stud side on there. So I shall go and do that with my punch. So that is my little cam there, or my male stud. So that's through the back. What we're going to do now is get our ID lining. And we're wanting to put that, the wrong side, over this to where it comes up, just underneath the first credit card slot. So we're wanting to glue right around the edge. Now I'm going to use a fabric contact glue just because it dries really quickly. So I just put a row around on the outside of the plastic. Now this brush is nice and hard. I don't use a flexible brush. I've used this several times already. I have ordered a tube of glue which will make this so much easier, but everything takes so long to arrive in New Zealand. Make sure you don't get little lines of it everywhere else. But contact glue is so good because it dries so quickly. So what I do is line that edge up first. Go along the edge. And seal that in place. So it's all sealed in place on the inside, and that's sealed in place on the outside, so you can get your credit card slot or your ID in there. So if this is an ID card, it can slide in there like that once it's all sewn in the ID slot, and you can still get your fingers in to take it out once that's all dried. So what we're going to do now is turn this over and put a row of double-sided tape down each end underneath each of the credit card slots. So the first one is going to be on top of that lining. So the little one only has 2 credit cards, whereas the bigger one has 5. So it would have more up here. So it's just a matter of repeating this process for the other cards as you go. So now we want to take our strip of fabric, landscape fabric, take that top strip off. Now we want to lay this centered over the top and make it nice and firm down there. We want to flip it over, and we want to sew underneath that card slot so that we're going through both sides. Right, so that's all sewn on that side, and it's sewn through there. So you can either, if you need to pull them through, do so now. Then we need to pull that down just gently that way. Just fold it along that crease. Now don't pull it because you will end up with a gap. Just gently crease it back there. Now take a credit card, sit it on the top so that this lines up just under, hope you can see that, so that's just under the next credit card slot. See, so I'm coming in about there. Hold that back, fold that over the top. Now while you're holding the fabric, pull the credit card out and take the tape off there and secure the tape. So then we're wanting to flip it back over with this lying out that way and sew down that credit card slot there. So again, that's our credit card slot sewn under, and at the back it's like that. So again, pull it down, give it a gentle crease, don't pull it, just fold it down. Now this time we've got nothing here. So we can put a bit of double-sided tape temporarily because I do like to glue this later. So just put a double bit. I don't think this holds it strong enough. I like to have it in a little bit of glue as well. So put your credit card slot so that it's sitting about a good 6mm under that edge. So that's 6mm, 1/4 inch under the top edge. I've done so many of these I eyeball them now, but you can measure that nicely. So see, that is all like that. We want to trim the edge off just so that it's sitting just shy of that edge. Now this is where I like to have a little bit of glue. Just let that dry off and just sit that and glue that in spot. So that's all our credit card slots done. We've put the tape on the back. Now what we want to do is do our folds. So the one above the zip comes down 9 centimeters or about 3.5 inches. So I like to do a line so I can see it once I've added my glue. And this one comes down 8.5, which is about 3 3/8. So that's where they're going to fold over like that. So this side, I'll get some paper to glue on to start with. I like to put a bit of glue down that line. And then just down the edges. You can glue the whole lot of this one if you want to, it really doesn't matter because but you've got the double-sided tape here in the middle, so that will secure it. Just make sure you get your edges. Whoops, I don't want that on the outside. Now you are coming just past that little where your lining meets. Now again, you can use any kind of glue you want. This is probably a little bit tricky and more than it actually needs, but right at this point in time, it's the only thing I've got that is going to be secure. So let that set for a little bit. Now don't forget we've got that bit there that's not glued. That's okay because we're just going to glue this surface to that. So we'll glue that while that's setting off. Now on this side, make sure you keep your glue within 6 millimeters of the edge, so just on the very edge. Now this glue will go through my fabric, so I'm going to have to put something in that gap. I've got a bit of damaged vinyl here, so I'm just going to slide that in under there because I want to keep that piece not glued. So what you want to do is make sure that folds right on that fold. So you can see it if you pinch it on the fold there. Now I'm backwards because of the camera. That's right on that fold. So I'm pinching right on my line that I put in there, and make sure that end, well, take your double-sided tape off. Right, so then just line those edges up as clear as you can, nicely like that. And through the middle and down that end. Oh, I've got glue on the outside. That'll come off with just a bit of a rub like that. Okay. Now we're going to do the same to the back on that line there. So we wanted to fold it there and there. That's why I put a line in, so it's easy to see. And as you can see, the back will not quite meet up, and that's the plan. That's how it's meant to be. Now the reason we haven't got glue inside is because that is your pocket, like that. So once that's dry, we're going to stitch down there and down here at 3mm or 1/8 of an inch. Then we're going to flip it over and sew down there and down there at the same amount. Now you can use a zipper foot if you prefer. So that's along the top. Now we're going to go down that piece too. Trim that up. So the next thing we want to do is work on our tab. To start with, we're going to sew from the edges to that cut line. So from the edge to that cut line at 1/8 or 3mm. Do that on both sides. So we've sewn down each side. Put the bit of Decovil light in behind this, just gives that a little bit of support. Put our D-ring or swivel hook on. Now we want to fold that down, it can come down a little bit, until it's level across the top like that. Now you might need a zipper foot on for this. And we're wanting to join those 2 rows of stitching from there to there, while keeping everything in place. Okay, that's fine. So we've come down there and along. So now what we want to do is just fold that down like that. Fold the tab and let the back come up so that those edges are level. So what we want to do now with that is glue that onto there flat. So this is a contact glue, so I will glue both sides. The good thing about this glue, it's easy to control where it goes. Right, so that is glued like that, double-sided, and our D-ring is up. So that's all dried off overnight, which is good. So what we want to do now is sew along this edge, top stitch along there at 1/8 of an inch or smaller, so less than 3mm. That's all sewn in place. So what we want to do now is to put it in this piece here where we didn't have any glue before. So if you put it zip side up, tab side up, that goes in there. What's helpful here is if you line that up here so that it's 1/4 of an inch or 6mm below that, and put a clip in there. Put that in there and line it up so that it's going to come exactly straight with your ID pocket. Now what's really useful here, now this is an air eraser marker, do not use any other kind, not a friction pen or anything, because that may not come off. Put a little mark on either side so I can just see it, and that's where I know I need to glue in between. There's my marks. So we want it so that that stitching is just hidden by this line. Now I tend to, with the contact glue, I tend to do one side at a time because I can get back in there and glue the other side. So I'm going to glue the outside first. So you want it centered across those lines. And just so that the stitching is just there. Now we do go down this piece when we stitch here, so that's why you don't want it too far in, because you don't want that to be in. So when it folds like that, it's flat like that. Let that set off a little bit. You can take that off now because it's set from the other side. Female side of my snap is going to go. I hope that's loose enough. You do need to have a bit of flex because by the time it gets things in it, it can be a bit tight. So I'm going to go and put my snap in there. So that's the other half of my snap in. That is, you cannot see the sewing on that side and you can just see it there. So what we're going to do now is put a bead of glue down this edge and a bead of glue down that edge. Then we're going to close them together so that there is a 6mm, 1/4 of an inch difference between the top and the bottom. Now you don't want to put the glue past 6mm mark there because that's where it's going to come to. Right, so that's set off a little bit. Make sure that is level there and try and get it as neat as you can on your edges. You can trim this edge later, but it's nicer if you don't have to. I'm going to put a couple of clips in there, just on the very edge where my stitching is going to go, just so that that sets off nice and firmly in there. If you let the glue dry properly, it doesn't tend to clog up your needle. Okay, so that's all dried. What we're going to do is stitch down here and down there with our tab open at a 6mm or 1/4 of an inch. Then we'll do this end as well. And we are all finished. And there she is. And it's all done. As you can see, I've put rivets in all 4 corners. Quite like that look with the D-ring. It gives like it's got a little bit of extra hardware. So I need to tidy up the edges and edge coat those. So that is your little D-ring wallet. So there's lots of options with this pattern. There's the bigger one without the D-ring. This one's been made a little bit differently. Where we've separated and sewed 2 rows there, this one has had, they're not separated. It's been glued together and then sewn all the way around. Now it's a nice flat look.